Hi everyone, welcome to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast, your daily audio summary of the latest news reported in the Ukrainian media. Today is our 500th episode. Thank you for being with us. Those of you who support us on Patreon can already listen to a special episode we've recorded to mark the occasion. The episode is about the life of Ukrainians abroad. If you haven't subscribed to our Patreon, you can do so by following the link in the description to this episode. 480 days less the Russian invasion of Ukraine. In his evening video address, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky thanked some of the Ukrainian units who were active in fighting against the Russian forces, including the air defense. He informed that almost 36 missiles and about 50 attack drones were destroyed in 7 days. All Kalibrs and Kinzhals missiles were destroyed during the attacks against Kyiv, and thus the lives of Ukrainians were saved. Zelensky responded to Russia's claims that it managed to destroy some of the Patriot air defense systems in Ukraine. All of them are shooting down Russian missiles as efficiently as possible. Not a single Patriot has been destroyed, said the president. Zelensky recalled the recent visit of the delegation of African leaders and representatives, first to Ukraine and then to Russia. The delegation had the opportunity to see who is really interested in peace and who himself embodies war. It was very clear, he said. According to the president, everything that was discussed in Ukraine was about the peace formula, while everything that was said in Russia was about war, about how to continue destroying lives. We would really appreciate if you could rate us in the apps where you are listening to this podcast: Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify. This way more people would learn about the highlights from Ukraine and truth about Russia's invasion. The General Staff of Ukraine informs that Russia continues to focus its main efforts on the Liman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka and Marinka fronts. A total of 17 combat engagements occurred between Russian and Ukrainian forces over the course of the day. Russian forces conducted more than 40 airstrikes and deployed multiple launch rocket systems to conduct 60 attacks on positions of Ukrainian troops and on civilian settlements. In the Sumy region, father and son were killed by the Russian shelling, 2 women were wounded, reports Ukrainska Pravda. Head of the intelligence center of the Estonian Defense Forces, Colonel Margo Grosberg, said that in the current battles, Ukraine lost less than 10% of the equipment provided by Western countries, reports European Pravda. At the same time, Grosberg said that this indicator may increase since the loss of equipment is an inevitable consequence of any offensive actions. He added that Western equipment better protects servicemen, and even if it's destroyed, crews often survive without serious injuries. According to Grosberg, the Ukrainian armed forces continue the first phase of their offensive operation, namely conducting reconnaissance in order to find weak points in the defensive positions of the Russian occupying forces. He stressed that Ukraine chooses the time, place and means by which its troops will attack enemy units. In turn, Russia will try to destroy Ukraine's offensive capabilities as much as possible, using artillery, minefields, and airstrikes for this purpose, Grosberg said. The head of Estonian intelligence emphasized that the Russian forces spent the last 9 months building up defenses in the captured territories, so Ukraine is in no hurry with its counteroffensive. For this reason, as well as in order not to take unnecessary risks, the Ukrainians approach their operation more methodically, more cautiously and quietly, since both human and technical resources are in fact worth their weight in gold, he continued. Grosberg believes that the search for weak points in the Russian lines and probably along the entire front line will continue next week, and we will not see an offensive in the next 7 days. Thank you for listening to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast. We're a commercial initiative of just 2 people, and we need your help to grow. Share information about the podcast, rate us in the app, subscribe to our Patreon. With your support, we are getting better. We call on you to demand from governments of your countries to impose the toughest sanctions possible on Russia and its citizens to stop their invasion of Ukraine.